Hey YouTube, Nekomimi Anima here, and today I would like to introduce you to the first episode of a new series I'm doing where I basically take a topic that interests me and say what I think. This is also going to kind of double as a news type thing. I don't plan on covering every anime story that comes up in the news, but I am going to talk about the ones that really catch my attention. So without further ado, let's get started. Today I'd like to talk to you about PonyCan USA, who has just released their first localized anime in the USA. As some of you might be aware, last year Pony Canyon opened a North American distribution arm called PonyCan USA. This was excellent news in my opinion, as we have lost some rather big names in anime localization over the last decade, so it is encouraging to see that Japanese anime companies haven't completely given up on us. For those who don't know, Pony Canyon is a major Japanese media publisher and record label in Japan. They are not only responsible for the publishing of many anime, but have also been directly involved in anime production in various capacities. Basically, they are a major media player and have a lot of capital behind them. So for a company like them to set up shop in the US is very encouraging. They have the resources to invest so they can do things properly, and while of course every company lives by a budget, they aren't as constrained as a small localization upstart might be. Localizing anime themselves gives them a level of control that studios often lose when they license shows to North American distributors. As we all know, so many localization companies often botch the localization for numerous reasons, be it a bad dub, poor translation, or tampering with the Blu-ray releases so they look worse than the DVD. I wonder how many people who had never seen anime before picked one up off the shelf at Best Buy thinking they would give it a shot, only to find campy voice acting and poor translations that brought the show down, which completely turned them off to the genre. So I think it is a good thing that Pony Canyon will be localizing themselves, as it allows them to protect their interest of maintaining a quality release. However, I have one major concern. Basically, Pony Canyon USA is following Aniplex's example of self-localization, and not just in the good ways. I'm glad they are aware of and following important trends of modern-day media consumption, such as streaming. Streaming is huge in America, with companies such as Netflix having most of their customer base here. Even with our quasi-broken broadband system, streaming has risen to such popularity that video rental stores have all but gone extinct in America. While part of that is because streaming is such an efficient, cost-effective, and convenient way to consume content, it is also because the video rental model was largely outdated and broken. However, where I feel PonyCan USA is already making missteps is when it comes to their pricing structure. They are basically adopting Aniplex's model of Japanese pricing. To a certain extent, I'm surprised Aniplex has managed to stay in business all these years. Their prices are just ridiculous for some of their titles. For example, Sword Art Online. This is one of my favorite anime of all time, but I don't own it. I just streamed it on Netflix because when I looked into picking it up, I just couldn't justify the cost. The first season is broken up into 4 parts that cost around $90 each. That is $360 for one season. Granted, they are sold as limited editions, but that is still pretty high for one season. Another example would be Bakemonogatari at $150 for 15 episodes. Again, this is a limited edition, but that still strikes me as a bit too high for one season. The main problem is that they don't offer any standard editions at more reasonable prices, at least not in the cases that I've seen. PonyCan USA is following the same pattern. They are currently localizing 3 shows: Cute High Earth Defense Club Love, Yuki Yuna is a Hero, and Denki-Gai. The former being streaming only at this time, and the latter 2 getting physical releases. Each part is $71.98. All of these are collector editions, so a higher price is understandable, but the higher price does seem to get a little ridiculous once you start adding things up. Yuki Yuna is a Hero is a 12-episode series, and each part only has 4 episodes, so you are looking at $216 for one season. I was honestly going to pre-order this series even though I had never heard of it. I was just going to do it to show my support. But then I realized how much it would cost in total. I gladly would have paid $72 for a collector's edition of the complete season, but $72 for each part is a little too much even if you are getting a lot of extras. A more reasonable way to break the series into parts would have been to release one higher priced collector's edition with all the goodies and a nice art box, and then release additional standard volumes that would just slide into the original box, but for a more reasonable price. This strikes me as a good compromise. I don't even think their current pricing model would be as much of an issue if they would just release a standard edition in addition to their expensive collector's editions. The problem is that while the cost may be justified per volume due to the extras, the price per season just seems to get a little bit out of hand. The problem with Aniplex and now PonyCan USA is that they are caught up in the Japanese pricing model for anime distribution, which quite frankly probably needs to be rebalanced. In the US, we have a heavily consumer-influenced economy, and people spend a ton of money on luxury items. However, we are also very concerned about value. Sure, you have high-end brands which sell to a small group of consumers at high prices, and do well doing it, but some of the largest and most successful companies are those selling at lower prices and in turn capturing a larger group of consumers. I think this is just another example of the Japanese anime industry being somewhat out of touch when it comes to their pricing structure. While this kind of pricing may be commonplace in Japan, in the US we have long been spoiled by the relatively low cost of anime pricing from US-based localizers. I'm not going to pretend to understand the economics or even try to get into the minutia of why anime is so expensive in Japan and so cheap in the US, but for a variety of reasons, the current model of anime distribution in America generally results in rather reasonable prices. When it comes to physical television and movie releases, selling at a lower price point definitely helps increase sales. Can you imagine if your average Hollywood movie or television series cost upwards of $100? Again, I'm not going to pretend to understand the minutia of the economics at play here. The US and Japan are two totally different markets. Not only are our concepts about money different, but costs of production are different. Japan has a much smaller population to target, although probably a much larger anime fan base to sell to. However, I think it would be a net gain to start selling anime at a reduced rate in Japan to target more consumers. This is just my uneducated 2 cents though. What I can say with a great degree of confidence is that pricing anime at Japan levels in the US greatly reduces your target audience. How many people are going to pay $150 to $400 for one season when they can go on Crunchyroll, Funimation, or for that matter Netflix or Hulu in most cases for under $10 a month, if not for free? This isn't even taking into account that some people will just outright pirate it. Streaming aside, when you have companies like Funimation licensing anime and then selling it for $40 or so, how do you compete? Is a 24-page art book and a few pinup cards really worth all the extra money that Aniplex and PonyCan are asking? Go look at the pre-order page on Funimation. For standard editions, you're looking at as low as $20 to around $40 for a complete season and sometimes even a whole series. Some are reissued save editions, but some are new shows, and these are first print prices. Just as an example for a little context as to competitor pricing, just look at the sheer awesome value of the Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions limited edition released by Sentai Filmworks for less than $80. How do you compete with these prices? In an interview with Anime News Network, PonyCan USA executive director Kazuyoshi Fukuda, when asked what about the US market was attractive to PonyCan, responded saying, quote, "The fact that there are fans in America that love Japanese animation just as much as, or possibly even more than Japanese fans," end quote. That's a pretty bold statement if you think about it, and maybe even a rather astute observation. I believe that to a certain extent, anime fans in the US and Japan are a different breed. We look at and appreciate anime in a different light because it isn't native to us. It's similar to those who grew up their entire lives with the internet and those who didn't have it for part of their lives. I didn't have the internet until around 5th grade or so, and when I got it, it completely changed my world. It influenced the way I thought, my likes and interests, and the way I gathered information. It also played a huge role in my discovery of anime. I remember how my life was before the internet and appreciate it differently because it was so transformative for me and because I was able to observe a significant evolution in technology from where it was when I first started tinkering online to where it is now. The internet has come a long way, even over the last decade. The internet is like a whole new service now, providing all kinds of experiences some never thought possible. But this new generation that literally grew up with a tablet in their hands connected to broadband just isn't going to have the same appreciation for it. Even younger teens these days don't seem to fully realize just how significant the internet is. Personally, I think it is kind of the same with anime. US anime fans recognize just how lucky we are to be able to consume this form of art. Many of us didn't grow up with it, and it is almost like we stumbled upon some great kept secret. We are also aware that we are only consuming a very small piece of the pie and are lucky to be able to do so. Much of the anime available to us we can only appreciate because of the painstaking efforts put into translation by the various fan subgroups on the internet and a handful of localization studios. Anime is kind of a thing of wonder to a lot of non-Japanese fans, at least for me. It tells stories that live action has trouble tackling without coming off as corny, or in some cases won't even attempt to try to tell, or very rarely anyway. It focuses on character development in a unique way that most network TV shows don't. It oftentimes provides incredibly stimulating visual art, and for me personally, it introduced me to music I never would have otherwise discovered. It has also captivated many with its portrayal of Japanese culture and society. Basically, it has opened up a whole new world for a lot of people, myself included. I don't mean to digress here, but my point is that there certainly is a unique appreciation for anime among non-Japanese fans. But this unique appreciation doesn't necessarily translate into a willingness to fork over large sums of cash when we are used to paying reasonable prices, not just for anime, but for movies and TV shows in general. Only the most ardent of fans or those with cash to burn are willing to pay such high prices. He goes on to make a comment that he believes all the extras will justify the cost for people, but I am skeptical of this. They are nice extras, and viewed individually, they are kind of worth the price, but once you add everything up, things just start to get a little ridiculous. I just don't think most people want to pay such high prices for a show just because of all the extras. I know there are people who will, but certainly not most people. Like I said before, I'll gladly pay $80 to $100 for a season if it is a collector's edition, but I'm not going to pay that much per volume for a 4-part series. That is just too much for one season. So is PonyCan USA doomed from the start? I don't necessarily think so, but they are significantly reducing their market potential by only releasing expensive collector editions. There are probably enough people willing to pay these prices because Aniplex is still in business, although I imagine licensing their content for streaming has something to do with that. In fact, PonyCan USA consulted with Aniplex prior to deciding to set up shop in the States, and decided to do so in large part because they were encouraged by what Aniplex had to say. So there is definitely money to be made here, but it's also risky. And there is no guarantee to succeed, especially with so many competitors selling at prices that are much more reasonable. And that is really the biggest problem here. They are in a market where prices are pretty much already set. We already have expectations as to what we should pay. Aniplex may sell for high prices, but they are kind of the exception rather than the rule. I don't want you to walk away from this thinking I'm trying to say no one is going to pay these prices, because that just isn't true. There are people who will. Whether enough will to make PonyCan USA reasonably profitable is another story. But just think of all the additional sales they could have if they were more reasonably priced, or at the very least, releasing standard editions. Looking back to Aniplex for a second, I can't help but point out that if they had a collector's edition for the complete season of Sword Art Online, even for $100, I would have bought it without a second thought. But they also need standard editions for $40 to $50 or so for someone who just wants the basic show, or maybe they're just interested in checking it out for the first time and don't want to commit to spending so much money on something they may not like. And in PonyCan USA's case, I certainly would have bought Yuki Yuna as a hero just to show my support for Crying Out Loud, but the cost is just too high considering I've never seen it and was only mildly interested. For the price I would pay for the entire season, I can easily acquire half a dozen high-quality complete seasons or even series, even more if I bought save editions. So I wish PonyCan USA the best. I truly do hope they prosper, as we need all the anima in the States we can get. I just hope they take a serious look at their pricing model in order to attract even more business and hopefully even some new anima converts. Anyway, guys and girls, those are my thoughts on the matter. What do you all think? Do you think PonyCan USA should charge higher prices because the Western market needs a change, and we need to start ponying up, no pun intended, for our anima like they do in Japan? Or is this symptomatic of how Japanese consumers are getting, according to some, ripped off, and Pony Canyon is trying to maintain their grip on the anima market? Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Nekomimi Anima, signing off.